Hi, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Do you want to start with the slides?
Oh, yeah, I'm just, I guess I'll just kind of give context. These slides are really, really simple, so you don't have to think too much. Just want to give you a snapshot. So this is Backstage Capital, started 2.5 years ago from scratch. Really started 5 years ago, but 2.5 years ago is when I got my first investor to join this crazy ride with me. You can find me at Arlan was here on Twitter and Instagram. I just recently posted some photographs while I was sitting here that you might find interesting from my high school days. Okay. Oh yeah. Yeah, this is my kind of tech, you know what I mean? It's a front and a back. Small fund, but raised little by little over time, and blood, sweat, and tears. So I've raised $4 million and deployed that over 80 companies across the country in the last 2.5 years. What's notable about that is that besides raising it from scratch, being the bootstrapped VC, which is almost unheard of, 78 of those companies have a woman, a person of color, or an LGBT founder at the helm. And that's after seeing 2,500 or so companies to get to that number. And that's some of them. So the people that have a Backstage purple shirt on, those are our team members, our crew, part of them. And that's part of our portfolio in Austin at South by Southwest just in March. So that UN photo is not what you'll find in other venture capital funds in Silicon Valley, Boston, New York, or elsewhere. And I'm very happy to non-humbly brag about that. And then that's a picture of most of our crew in the same day. And that you will not see either in Silicon Valley, Boston, New York, or elsewhere, where the crew, the team itself, including 7 people in that group can make investment decisions. So that's kind of different. So that's it. That's really it. I just like seeing those pictures. So I bring it. Follow me. Stay in touch. I'll just, throughout this thing, I'll just have it on different pictures to make myself feel better about life. We'll start there.
You just leave them there.
Oh, I like to move them. I move them around a little bit. I do. Once I learned, because I was like, I don't want slides. I don't want to be at school. No offense, but I don't want to be at school. I don't want to do anything that's like corporate, man. Like, here's 4 slides. Just take them with you. And then I discovered the clicker. It's a powerful thing. All right.
So, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
We have a lot to discuss, but I want to get through my couple of questions and then open up to the audience.
Sure. Thanks for coming here, y'all. And
thank you, guys.
Spending your afternoon with me.
So 2.5 years, over $4 million fund, about 50 LPs, that's right? 80 companies with the goal to get to 100 by the end of the year?
Well, the goal was to get to 100 by 2020, and we will reach 100 by the end of the year. We weren't in a race, but it's organically happened that way.
So tell me how you got here. How did you dream up Backstage? What was the process? What's your story?
That's a big question.
What's your story?
So I was raised in Dallas, Texas. Grew up there. Single mother, had a brother. Was always. I did well in school, test-wise and academically. I was always honors and always head of the class and voted most likely to succeed and all that. But I guess what I was in high school, I should have been in college, which I didn't go to, which is I asked a lot of questions and I challenged things that were written. And my question was always, well, just because it's written in this book, why is it so? And, that's a good question for a Yale student, but it's not necessarily a good question for your 9th grade English class and the teacher just wants to get out of there, right? So I spent a lot of time outside. So I kind of bounced around, didn't go to college, got accepted into some. That's not cool. I like that. And then just was like this mad scientist for the first, for the last 15 years. So I started a music magazine in my early 20s that turned into a magazine for women who like women and those adjacent.
I'm finding it.
Yeah,
Keep
just
talking.
reading
You're good.
this, highlight it. And then I started working in live music and worked my way up there. That's why I say it's a big question because I don't never know when to start it. But I worked my way up in live music, starting with indie bands and singer-songwriters all the way up to Wembley Stadium as of a year and a half ago. And that was no easy feat, and really was just me kind of creating my own network and hustling my way into that as a production coordinator and then tour manager. And then around 2012-ish, started learning about Silicon Valley. And
How did you begin learning about Silicon Valley? Because
well, I just, back then, I try to think about it. Back then I knew of Airbnb because I applied to Airbnb. I wanted to be a customer service rep, and I was like broke. It was like $13 an hour, I think. And I did 3 different interviews, and they came back and told me I was overqualified. And I said, okay, so that means I'm qualified, right? If I'm overqualified, that means I'm qualified. But I didn't get that gig, and it's funny because now we actually hosted our 2nd year anniversary at Airbnb headquarters. So I thank them for not hiring me because who knows what would have happened. But I knew about Airbnb. I knew about Warby Parker. I knew about, Facebook and Twitter, and I knew what these things were, but I didn't think about the business behind them. That wasn't of my concern. And then I started seeing people. I always go back to Ellen because she really was one of the first people I ever saw who was an entertainer who I respected, who was making investments in companies. And I've always had Richard Branson as like a business hero. So I've always been thinking about being an entrepreneur and like starting my own thing. I was a terrible employee. It's hard for me to pretend that I like someone if I don't. It's hard for me to get in line. It's hard for me to do all that. So I've never been a corporate type of person. It was never going to happen. So this is like, I've always tried to start my own thing. It was just it was always an island. You know what I mean? I didn't ever have like these groups or these networks of people that were working on something as well. I was always the odd person out working on these things. Like I started a music magazine that ended up being something that the designer from Rolling Stone contacted me and asked me how many people were on my team and how we did this. And it was just me and a couple of other people. So I always had a high quality of output, but the business side of it, I just didn't understand as much as I needed to because I didn't have any of that.
So what was the hardest part in going to this, essentially just like a hustler, right? You got what you need to get done at a high level throughout, and then saying, I want to turn this energy, this raw passion towards the VC and startup world.
What was the hardest part?
Yeah, the most difficult part in that transition.
Well, I mean, it would have been like anything that I tried out. So that part wasn't difficult. I think the hardest part probably was just who I was, trying to break into that world. So Black, a woman, gay, not networked in that space, just starting off, poor, broke, and that's very different than a lot of VCs. I think it was just starting at less than zero and trying to be in a race with people who had a lot of resources and a very, very competitive landscape.
Yeah. What was that process like? How many doors did you need to knock on? How long did it take to even get your first LP on board?
We contacted hundreds of people, talked to them, very customized in most cases. We were talking hundreds of investors that I reached out to, that I would read about or learn about on some video or some press or just over time connect the dots. I did a lot of research and got in touch with a lot of people and got a lot of silence, got a lot of no's, got a lot of what you're doing is wonderful, where can I donate? You know what I mean? A lot of philanthropic heartstrings were being pulled. You're doing a great thing. This is great for humanity. and but they weren't trying to write a venture check or a for-profit check. So just want to make sure we're.
Has that started to change now a little bit?
Oh yeah, I'm going to switch it because
No, go ahead.
it's changed because it's not completely changed. It's changing, and that was a mixture of many things. Even 3 years ago, even 4 years ago, nobody was talking about race and gender the way they're talking about it now in the VC and startup world. And I was in fact told not to talk about it. I was told not to lead with that. Those are the words that were told to me. Don't lead with that because that's not what we think about here. And my thing was, well, you need to be thinking about it if you're not, because that's first of all not true. You know, there's no way you can have rooms and rooms and rooms full of straight white men, stacked, if you're not somehow saying to yourself you want to surround yourself with that. And you can call it unconscious bias. I call it conscious bullshit. But they weren't talking about it. So now they're talking about it because they're forced to, because of people like funds like Backstage, but also people that were there before me, people that were working on things in a on feet on the ground, and then all of this stuff with sexual harassment and all of this. If last year was about uncovering sexual harassment in a big way, the same way in Hollywood that it was uncovered, now that happened in the tech world too. If you're not familiar, the same stuff was unearthed. I think that this year that's going to happen with racial situations. I think there's going to be a lot of racism that's unearthed that we all know about, but it's going to be in the spotlight. And you're going to find out some stuff we didn't want to find out about people we liked. And then when we're standing in the rubble, it's the people who are resilient and who can turn opportunity from pain and heartache and terribleness and khakis and what is that, Patagonia? What is that? All that's in the same category in my view. It'll be the ones that are left standing. And I think a lot of the people left standing are going to be some women and some people of color and some LGBT people.
One thing I love about Backstage, and you said this earlier today, is the fact that you can't just become gain investment from Backstage from being Black or LGBTQ. Can you talk more about your investment strategy? Because it's not about saying, hey, I'm Black with an idea, can I have a check?
No, we can't say that. This is a for-profit, legally formed fund and let me try one more time, firm. And we're not giving out like checks for showing up Black.
Yep.
One day I hope they do that.
Sure. I'm here for it. I'm here for it.
I mean, I hope somebody does that. we certainly are owed it. But that's not what this is. And in fact, we are held to a higher standard, whether that's fair or not. And this fund has to return well. It doesn't have to do the astronomical figures that some people have thrown at me that I just ignore and laugh. But it does have to do well. It has to be on point. And that's my job. So I wake up, I'm a woman, a person of color, I'm LGBT, and as we said today, I'm cheerfully chubby. I'm all those things. That's what I wake up as. And so that informs a lot of what I do. But this fund, whatever the thesis is, if I had said, okay, all I'm going to do is stick to blockchain, I did all the research. I did 5 years of research about blockchain, so now I'm doing that. That's how I think about this. Whatever it is, we have to be really good at it. And so we are agnostic in what we invest in, as far as industry, sector, region of the country. And we do that on purpose to cast this wide net of let's at this first 100 companies, let's kind of build up our expertise, and that's served us well. But everything else is very. I won't lie and say that we have this crazy algorithm that like we stick to, that a lot of things have, but it is based on what I feel will at least 3x our fund.
Can you speak more about this idea of being held to a higher standard? Because I know some people might say, you know, it's a VC world, it's competitive, everyone's held to a high standard. But I think it's different in your case. Can you be a bit more specific about that?
I can speak to my experience, to the conversations I've had in public, to the conversations I've had in whispers, people sliding in the DMs to tell me what their opinion. And VC is very competitive, mostly because you have some very competitive rich guys who want to outdo each other, you know. It's competitive in that way. It's competitive because there's a lot of really great rich guys and white guys that truly respect their jobs and want to do well by their LPs and respect them. But there's all sorts of that. But just like with a lot of things, women and women of color especially are given one chance to fail. And that is the standard that we're held to. You failed. Your company didn't make it. That was your one chance. Because think about how much we have to do in order to get that company off the ground, to get any sort of funding, and I'm talking in broad strokes. I'm not talking every single person. Everybody has their story. But in general. And that's one thing that I want to help change as well. One day I will have a fund that is strictly, the goal of it will be for you to fail at your second company. That's the next iteration. But going back to this, with me, so I essentially have a company that I built from the ground up. I've been loud about it. I've been proud about it. I've said that I don't think I've made any claims that are just outlandish. All I've said is we being people of color, women, LGBT, we have not had the same access, resources, chances, opportunity, money, any of that. We should, and I want to do my part to help level the playing field. That's what my outlandish thing has been. So what that's turned into is, well, if this fund doesn't do well, if we don't do numbers, if we don't have these exits from our companies where people are selling their companies for a lot and we're returning a lot of money to our LPs, I will be considered a loudmouth failure. And that's cool. I mean, personally, I don't care if that happens, but I do have a lot of people that I want to represent well. And I don't think it necessarily is right that that's the case.
Because I know earlier today you said that if your fund returns a 3x, you're already doing better than 85% of other venture capital funds.
That's
in the
correct.
United States. But then people are looking at you and they're saying if you don't do 10x, you were not successful.
Yeah, that's what I was told. So in general, venture funds have a different profile than a direct investment. If you're an angel investor and you put $10,000 into a company that you see at Yale, and that company sells, you could probably get your money 10x, 3x, 20x, 100x. With the venture fund in general, no matter who's running it, you're looking more like 2x, 1.5x. And so 3x, I mean, even these funds, like think about Andreessen Horowitz, you think about General Catalyst, these funds are like gigantic funds, and they're, I think, benchmark 6x'd. And that's huge, right? That's like so huge. But everybody else, even that they raise, they probably 2x, 2.5x, 3x. There's people who haven't even 1x yet, continue to raise. So think about that just in general to understand the foundation of that. So if I were to 3x our fund, any of our funds, we have a few. If I were to 3x any of them, I would statistically be doing better than 85% of all venture capital funds perform. And I was told by someone that I need to 10x, that anything less than 10xing will be considered a failure. And that was told that like a year and a half ago, and it still makes me mad when I say it out loud. Because that's ridiculous. Like, think about if you take me out of it, I'm going to step out of it. But think about what I just told you I went through to get this fund. They're saying that doesn't matter. They're saying I got money. I didn't have to go through any of that. That person is saying I can 3x the fund and you can 10x the fund and we'll be on the same plane. Really? Really though? So that's how I relate to all of our founders who are being told that. They're walking in a room with traction based on raising $250K, $10,000 at a time rather than $2.5 million on the back of napkin, and they're still being told, you're not ready. You don't have the chops, you don't have the experience. Oh, really? You know, that's how I look, oh, really? Okay. I say, oh, really, a lot to people. To their face and behind, to myself. Oh, okay.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah.
One thing I kind of switching gears a little bit here. One thing I like about Backstage is your crew.
Word. Look how cute they are.
Like you
we need
really
to have like, a Colgate sponsorship. Everybody but me. Everybody, like, look at that. They're just adorable.
And they're from all over the country. You have a fully remote team. Is that right? Mostly remote?
Yeah, we have co-working spots, two co-working spots in LA because a few of our, like 2 or 3 people work together. But mostly we're spread between LA, San Francisco, Oakland, New York, Boulder, Detroit, Mexico City.
How do you manage a fully remote team, a fully remote VC team with all the decisions you have to make?
I mean, right now, like there's 4 of us here, Diane, Del, Chacho. We're all here from 3 different cities. And the rest of our team has been, I mean, we've been working. The rest of our team, we just checked in on Slack and everybody's working on something. So, I mean, it's like, I think, and you know, y'all correct me if I'm wrong, but I think people at Backstage have like a lot of fun. And so I think they look forward to working on stuff that they're working on. And so there are a lot of leaders at our in our team. I like to, when I was thinking about Backstage, and as I continue to, I want everyone to feel like they have their own like mini startup within Backstage. And there's teams of people. There's some people that work kind of solo, and then there's always some overlap. So Slack is our friend. We use Slack all day. We have a couple of other things like Flow, I think we're using, and ProsperWorks. These things help us kind of stay connected. We're still figuring it out. We do a monthly in-person meeting, which is...
Everyone together. Oh, wow.
It's not mandatory, but nobody ever skips it if they don't have to. And we try to, because it is important for us to be in the same room, but it's also, you know, I'll give Keziah as an example. Keziah is a junior engineer at Backstage. She's a queer woman of color. A lot of people that I met on Twitter. And most people who came to Backstage came to me and asked to join, but Keziah, I found her because she tweeted about, she was upset that more companies didn't allow remote workers because she said she's so introverted, being in a room full of people talking is not necessarily how she's going to perform best. It is not something that stirs her soul. At the same time, she also likes to be nomadic. She doesn't like to stay in one place for more than a couple of months. So she needed a job that did all that. And I saw that, and I'm looking at that, and she's an engineer, full stack. I'm like, oh, I need to find her. So I flew her to Houston within a week.
Wow.
I was like, I got to talk to this person.
Yeah.
And she, I hear stories all the time. I just heard a story just a few days ago where someone needed to go back to another city to be with their family for health reasons. And they just could, the company just couldn't make it work going back and forth. And to me, that's like attractive. I'm like, oh, I'd love for you to be in 2 cities, and because that's perspective that I can't have. I can't be everywhere at once. I really like that. So I think it's a good mixture. We haven't gotten it perfect yet, but it's a good mixture of you being able to live your life, quality of life you want to. You can make your salary stretch because certain cities that works. You can stay with your loved ones. You can do your thing. And then, you know, you come out and meet everybody once a month.
One thing I like that you said on Twitter was that you're trying to build a company that you always want to work for.
Yes.
Which I think is fantastic.
Oh, yeah. That's goal 1.
And even the culture that you're building. I mean, earlier today we saw a number of Yale students pitch. And then outside, the conversations that we were all having, right? In terms of why do you like this, and pressing your team, and the culture of everyone has an equal voice, but you have to be able to defend it well.
Yeah.
Where is this coming from? Can you kind of talk a little bit more about that? Because I found that fascinating.
I just had a lot of, I worked since I was 15, and so many times I worked really, really hard while someone else got paid more, got the glory, got treated better, all that. It was very, I used to have people cheating off my page, my homework. It was all through life. And I learned recently that my mom went through that as one of the, she was one of 2 women in a big team as an air traffic controller. And they used to take her glasses and hide it, put it up on shelves she couldn't reach and do stupid, sexual harassment stuff. And then before that, there was another problem before that. So like, I was just used to being that person who kind of got stepped on, before I started talking, before I started speaking up for myself. And if you get the honor of starting a company from the ground up, and you don't use that to try to add to the quality of life of the people that are spending their time working with you, you're doing it wrong, in my opinion. Like, that's a missed opportunity, because everyone who works here, every single person that works at Backstage could be doing something else. They don't get paid market. They get paid well, but they don't get paid market. Everybody has other options. Some people who don't have options, their option is to start their own company these days. Their option is to not make as much and still have more autonomy. So I want to respect that from everyone, and I'm working on that every day to just be better at that. And I also really, I need everybody who works for me. You know what I mean? Like, I need their talents. There's not one person who's disposable. So I want everybody to be happy. I want everybody's quality of life to be high, as I want mine to be.
One thing I also enjoy about your team and the way that you guys operate is that, for myself, and I know for Chacho and Del as well, we all found you on Twitter. I'm a Backstage mentor because I was like, yo, Arlan, what's good? How can I help?
Yeah.
And you're like, be a mentor. I was like, oh, okay.
That's right.
How do you have the ability to tweet and just be on Twitter so much and be able to talk to the trolls and talk to the people in the DMs and really take care of everything?
Oh, Chacho, you remember I told you my schedule for the first half of yesterday? Was it quite a bit of stuff? Yeah. So I do a lot of stuff during a day, in a 16-hour period, a ton of stuff. And for me, going on Twitter, I know this sounds weird, but going on Twitter is actually kind of cathartic. Isn't that weird? I'm going to get called fat by somebody that day, but still, the good stuff outweighs that, no pun. First of all, social media is part of my job. I'm the CEO of a company. I'm the managing partner of another company. That branding is part of my job. So that's how I can do it in that way. And as you say, I found a lot of employees that way. I found a lot of partners that way, people who have helped. And it's important for me not to get in some sort of bubble. I don't want to become the thing that I've been trying to rail against. That doesn't make sense. So I need to kind of know what's going on. Second of all, I used to have a blog that was read by 50,000 women every month. And I started that blog probably at 24 or something like that, 25. And so I've just grown up in this kind of place where I'm pretty transparent about my life. So I kind of made that decision early on, and it's hard to come back from that. It's hard to put the toothpaste back in the tube.
Yep.
And so I'm just kind of as transparent as possible. I'm a very private person, believe it or not, as much as I put out there. I do respect my privacy. But I feel like there are a lot of people who don't have the luxury of being able to speak out like I do, and a lot of people who don't have the luxury of being able to, speak their mind or get heard by as many people, even though this is just the beginning of what I'm doing. And so I enjoy that. I also think it's important that I know, if Cardi B is pregnant.
Yeah, that's true. Very important.
Because
and I'm not going to watch SNL, and I'm not going to watch SNL. I'm not going to watch SNL for that. I need to know via Twitter.
Right.
Yeah.
Twitter is SNL. They'll tell me.
Oh yeah. With memes.
I need to know what they thought of that thing that happened 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think. It's Twitter. There's so much wrong with Twitter. So much wrong with Twitter. it's life or death in some situations. But there's some good from it, and it's definitely, takes me out of it helps me stay human a little bit.